Watch this, read.
And ye fathers,
You fathers,
provoke not your children to wrath.
meaning God's wrath. Don't provoke your children to God's wrath. How do you do that? The next part explains what he means.
But bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord.
Teach them the scriptures. Teach them their history. Let them learn. But I've found out this week, put it on the screen, you have some of the dumbest black parents in IUIC who allow their children to play this game right here. Damn. This is a pedophile's dream. This is where child trafficking is conducted. All this is Roblox. And they started off like an innocent game. Look, who want to have sex? Want to date? Good. And the kids are on, and there's no age restriction at all. You could go on there 5 years old, 6 years old, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It don't matter. You in. You in. Look at this. That's strip clubs. So this week, and you got to be mindful of parents, brothers, sisters. Parents, the dumb ones, they know their children are playing these evil games. But then here they go. Can my children stay by you and play with your children? No. And then when you mad when parents say no. It's good that some of y'all say no. Because their kids, some of their kids is into some filth at 8 years old. On that, put it back. They don't need to see me.
Say you virtuous, where you works. Kill the old woman every single day and you know it hurt. Yeah, level up, change your name, you can sever.
Shalom, Most High in Christ bless. My name is Sister Sirach from the House of Soldier Timothy, and I will be your host for A Sound Mind Podcast, Episode 2. And today, the title is Playtime or Programming, Sis, because we have to look at the screen time we are giving our children, whether that is cell phones, whether that is an iPad, whether it's even homeschool, right? Some things we can't control, but we still have to examine to see, can we limit our child's screen time so that they can develop the best habits, their brain can develop appropriately, and that their mental health will be sound. Hence the title, A Sound Mind Podcast. And our podcast is based on the scripture, 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 7. For God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. So like I said, today we'll be discussing the negative effects of screen time. So a little bit about my background is that I've been working in the mental health field for nearly 20 years in various settings with degrees in psychology, human development, marriage and family therapy, and currently I am finishing up my PhD in forensic psychology. So my goal is to hopefully use my knowledge in accordance with the scriptures, of course, to shed some light on this really important topic. And as our Bishop Nathaniel just brought out about how dangerous Roblox is for our children. He did the next Sabbath class and expressed that there are many people who were upset with him, and I was expecting that. I'm sure he was too, because we don't want to accept the correction, but we have to listen to our leaders, and everything he said was spot on. If your kids are playing Roblox, get them off. It is horrific. I have seen it within my mental health counseling sessions with children, and I'm talking 10 years ago. 10 years ago, okay? I was seeing cases of pedophilia, sex trafficking. This has been going on for a very long time. And understandable, some parents may not have known that, but all praise to the Most High for putting it on the bishop's spirit to bring that out so that everyone in Israel is aware. And I will name some other games, not just Roblox. Fortnite, get your kids off of Fortnite. Get your kids off of Minecraft, okay? because they do use these platforms for very extreme things, and we don't want to put our children at risk. And we need to adhere to the wise counsel of our bishop and get our children off these games immediately. Behold, the Israelite woman, timeless, regal, unshaken. For though the world has forgotten, and the nations claim it as their traditional garments, we remember. It was our foremothers, torn from their land, who first shaped these renowned patterns. Captive hands forced to craft beauty for the very ones who held them in chains. And yet, beauty remained. Her modesty is majesty, her presence a proclamation. The embroidery that adorns her is not borrowed, it is returned. It whispers of stolen heritage, a stolen identity of forgotten truths, and of a royal bloodline that endures. She carries the legacy of her foremothers, resilient, wise, and unwavering. She is not simply adorned with beauty, she is the beauty, woven in strength, remembered in dignity, restored in truth. The Israelite woman. This is In the Loop, what parents need to know now, and we are going to talk about some trends when it comes to screen time and how it affects our children, as well as some breaking news. So for parents who may say, oh, I didn't know Roblox, my kids were being exposed or could be exposed to such sexual and violent visuals, well, it's in the newspapers, it's online, and I'm going to share some of these trending articles. But first, let's start out with Matthew chapter 26 and verse 41. Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And I was meditating on this, and I'm thinking our children are weaker than us in the flesh. Right? We're all weak in the flesh. We have weaknesses, but our children are even more weak than us. So even more, we have to not just watch and pray for ourselves, but watch and pray for them. And one of those ways is understanding the topic and having knowledge on screen time, gaming, and these other issues that we face as a community. So, Common Sense Media, this is a platform that does research, and they did a research study back in 2023, and they identified that children ages 8 to 12 spend an average of 4 to 6 hours a day on screens, and for teenagers it was 9 hours per day average. That is a lot. I mean, I know some of our kids are homeschooled and maybe they are on the screen a lot. I understand my daughter was also homeschooled, but there has to be a balance. There definitely has to be a balance. And if they're not on the screen because they're at being homeschooled and they're on for that many hours, that is a serious problem. Another study conducted by the CDC in 2022 identified that only 24% of children ages 6 to 17 years old meet the recommended limit of 2 hours or less per day. Only 24% of children met the recommended limit. So yes, there is a recommended limit of limiting screen time to under 2 hours. Why? Because if you go over that, there are some negative effects, and we will go over that later on in this podcast. Now, let's get into some breaking news articles. The first one is by the BBC. This was published this year, and it says, Fortnite predator groomed children on voice chat. Yes, there is a voice chat on Fortnite, and you can speak live. Next article came out this year in June. This is by, I think it's Waterbury, and it says, this is a weird name, Naugatuck man demanded porn from 8-year-old in exchange for playing Fortnite. Our next article reads, Valley parents help police catch pedophile who lured at least 6 boys through Fortnite. He got 6 boys. Horrible. Our next one is by the Chronicle. This is in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona. Warning issued as kids who game online are targeted by vile predators as sex offenses triple. So sex offenses are tripling. Our next title, Minecraft Addiction, Unmasking Hidden Dangers for Kids. Yes, gaming can be an addiction. We have to be careful. Next one, Minecraft lawsuit, July 2025 update. They are going through a huge lawsuit right now. And our last article reads, Roblox branded pedophile hellscape with games like Escape to Epstein Island and Diddy Party. If you look these things up, they have like screenshots, and it's some scary stuff. It's some scary stuff that our kids could possibly be coming across. Let's be more mindful, let's be more vigilant, and let's protect our children.
He went up from thence unto Bethel, and as he was going up by the way, there came forth little children out of the city, and mocked him, and said unto him, Go up, thou bald head, go up, thou bald head. And he turned back and looked on them, and cursed them in the name of the Lord. And there came forth 2 she-bears out of the wood, and tare 42 children of them.
Alright, Shalom Israel. Today I have my lovely sister here with me. I'm so happy, who is going to help me discuss this topic today. And we both will use our professional expertise as it aligns with the scriptures first and foremost to give more insight on this topic of our children being overstimulated with screen time and some of the negative effects it can have on them. So please, sis, if you could please introduce yourself.
Shalom, everyone. Most High in Christ blessed. My name is Aviella. I'm of the House of Thomas from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
All praises, all praises. So can you please tell us just a little bit about your background and what kind of experience do you have that's going to help with this topic?
Sure. I have a Master of Human Services from Lincoln University, and I've been in the helping fields, basically counseling, therapy, for more than 10 years. I took about 11 years off to stay home with our children, And I've worked with adjudicated youth in the past. I have worked with, which are teenagers who are in the system. They're on probation and they have to attend different programs, get outreach, counseling. I've also been in a school-based setting where I've worked with teenagers. Again, that's my primary, I think, group that I've worked with over the years. And then, of course, women. And what I did there was I provided like mental health, drug and alcohol assessments with youth, and then connected the family and that student with services outside of the school setting. I've also worked in outpatient drug and alcohol setting with primarily women and basically getting their lives back on track through recovery. So,
all praises, all praises. So our first topic is actually going to be titled Overstimulated and Underdeveloped. And as I was thinking that some children are overstimulated, right? Whether it's through TV or any type of screen time, but they're also underdeveloped in certain areas like emotional regulation or underdeveloped in being able to problem solve or conflict resolution. So I want to start out with our first verse, which is going to be Deuteronomy 28:28, just to set the tone for this topic. It says, "The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart." So the Lord, one of the curses we have on us is that we're going to deal with mental illness. Madness is dealing with any type of mental illness, as the prophets have brought out. So my first question for you, sis, is how does excessive screen time affect children's attention span, their memory, or just their learning capabilities in general that you have seen?
Well, a lot of times what we see is that the more that children are online, there are a lot of images that pop up that are super fast, super quick. And that what that does to the brain as those children are developing is it shortens that ability to kind of stay focused. So now that child has to, sit in the classroom for 45 minutes and listen to a history lesson or even 30 minutes. And there aren't all those flashing lights and sounds and, stimulating images that they see all day online. And so that child is less likely to be able to sit and have the self-discipline to listen, take it in, and even remember a lot of that information.
Right, exactly. How about, have you seen children suffer with like language and like social skill development, like at a young age or even in teenage years when they have been exposed to so much screen time?
Well, it's hard to say from what I did in my line of work. A lot of the youth that came to see me were typically coming for, yes, behavioral issues. They weren't behaving well in class. They were failing classes. And then later on, that may or may not have turned out to be like a mental health diagnosis. There was some depression there. There's some trauma there. But I'm sure that wasn't actually part of what I had to dig for. Looking back now, I wish that it would have been, because that wasn't a focus when I was really full-time in the field, where we were asking those questions like, how often is your student online every day? Now, with the research that's coming out, it's much more focused on, hey, wait a minute, I think these iPads and these cell phones are impacting our kids, right? So back then, when I was full-time in the field, it wasn't a priority. It wasn't a focus. It wasn't even really a topic. The biggest topic back then was, kids and video games in particular, and seeing violence and the violence impacting them. But yeah, with like current studies, yes, it's coming out more and more that, the more that a child is on those screens, that it is absolutely affecting, their learning ability, their language skills, their social skills, because now they have to kind of snap out of that world and say hi to someone or hello, how are you doing? And a lot of kids, you can see it, with the more that they're on that device, they struggle then to kind of have relationships with people in the real world because they're used to typing to someone, a stranger. Yeah.
We'll keep your commandments for you. We'll read our Bibles for you. Strength and honor is for you. Everything we do is for you. It's for you, Lord.
Right. And that's a really heavy point that you made about how the focus of mental health has changed to incorporate looking more into how excessive screen time affects the brain, the social skills, the learning, the capabilities, because that is true. 10, 15 years ago, working in the field, even myself, even though I knew it was negative and like I kept
Hmm.
all praise to the most high, I kept my daughter from screen time because I just knew like this can't be good. Like I didn't grow up like that, so I just chose to raise her how I grew up, play outside, play with toys, do creative things. But
Yes.
I did see it in the therapy room. I saw it with children, working with families, just through over time it was exposed. Oh, they're on their tablet for hours. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's why they don't know how to communicate very well. Maybe that's why their vocabulary is very limited and when they're trying
Hmm.
to express themselves. But like you said, there wasn't much research out back then to support us in this, theory
Right.
that I had or that other therapists may
Right.
have had at that time. So,
Absolutely. You were in
yeah.
spirit that you were like, no, I don't think so.
Right, right, right. And even till this day, like my daughter will tell you, like, no, you are not, no. You need to ask
Yeah.
permission. Even now, she's 18, you need to ask permission. What are you doing on there? What are you looking up? How long do you need on there? It's still very
Yes.
restricted because I, you know, we don't need to have them exposed to certain things, and especially what Bishop just brought out in the Sabbath classes with the Roblox and
Yes.
Fortnite and things, and it's some scary stuff out there. It really is.
It really,
So,
really is. Yeah.
yeah. So my next question is when it comes to mental health specifically, so things like anxiety, depression, behavioral issues. Have you seen an association between screen time? I know you mentioned like video games back then was a thing and with violence. Over the years, what has your experience been with that overall?
Yes. And there are lots of studies that are increasingly coming out that are sharing with the public that the more that teens and children are on those screens, there's an increase in depression. There's an increase in anxiety. There's an increase in just an overall lack of social ability because,
Right,
again, they're so engrossed into that device. In addition to that, there's now a term, it's escaping me at the moment, forgive me, but it's regarding becoming addicted to the devices, where children are now, if the device is being taken from them, they're acting out, they're screaming, they're hitting, they're throwing things. And it's to the point where it's becoming an actual addiction for a lot of young
right.
people. So you have both sides of that where it's not good. You were already, again, you were in the spirit back then when you were picking up like, no, daughter, you cannot be on the device like everyone else. Yeah.
Right. Right. And it's so interesting because if you think of anxiety, right? Anxiety is rooted in fear, right? And if you're on a screen for hours at a time, and then, like you mentioned earlier, now you have to, oh, hello, or now I have to have a communication. Of course, there's going to be rooted in fear because you're so used to just looking at a screen. So there's going to be an anxiety development. Of course, there's going to be depression development because you don't know how to properly communicate your feelings. So now you're hoarding all these emotions. And for boys, it comes out in like outward aggression. For girls, they may, do other things that are more inward, but it
Yeah.
kind of makes sense, that it's correlated, right? Um, have you had any specific cases that you can think of, even if it's just one, where you saw the screen time or gaming or something impact the child negatively?
Um, well, I can use actually one of my children as a little mini case study.
Okay.
We have 4 children, and we have a 13-year-old, and he tends to really want to be on. And he's admitted that it impacts his spirit, it impacts his behaviors, it impacts his mindset. And so we've talked about 1 Corinthians 15:33, and that,
Oh, let me get that for you.
and okay, thank you.
1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 33. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners.
Yes, thank you. And we really talk a lot about that together, because he's admitted he actually has the self-awareness, which I love at 13 and
Oh,
as a male
crazy.
child too, to say, Mom, you're right. You're taking it from me, and I'm feeling angry that you're taking it. So it lets me know that I'm becoming more attached to it in an unhealthy way. And two, when I am on it and I shouldn't be, I know that my thoughts are different, my motivation is different, my obedience to my parents is different, and even how I treat my brothers and sisters is
Wow.
different. So I'll use a personal situation to say, yeah, it absolutely does, impact them. And for me as a mental health professional, I think we're hypersensitive to, like,
Hey.
what is that? What's going on here? But then the neat part of being in this truth is to be able to then connect the scriptures, because now we have the answers. I mean, we, through our education, I believe we're blessed to understand a lot of the dynamics of what
Mm-hmm.
is put out there. But I think the completion of that whole circle is what the root is, and the end all of it, which is the scriptures, to let us know, why do we do those things? Yes, we have the trauma from the curses, but also what's around us in the environment, behind enemy lines. And so it's a fight. It's a fight. But yes, it definitely impacts our kiddos. And I did want to share,
Mm-hmm.
for children ages 8 to 12, they do spend an average of 4 to 6 hours a day on screens. And for teens, it can be up to 9 hours a day. So that was one of the stats that I wanted to share. And so that's big. And I know for a lot of parents, I was thinking about this morning before we came on, and I was thinking about, okay, if I were a parent, now see, we live in a rural setting. So I can say to the kids, go outside, go build a raft, go dig for mud in the backyard. And so I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, what about the parents that live in an urban setting where it's not as safe, it's not as, protective, for their kids to maybe go out and do those same type of things. And I thought, how can that, how can we work as parents, no matter where we are, where our demographic is, to keep them busy and not be
Right.
idle?
Right.
So those were kind of the things that I was thinking about. Yeah, it can be hard. It can be hard. But so we can't judge parents for having their kids on for these lengths of times,
Right.
because again, some parents work. Some
Yeah.
parents, again, are in an urban setting. They can't say, hey, go outside and play. It's not safe.
Right.
But there are solutions, which I'm sure we'll get to in the future of this broadcast. But yeah, it's
Yes,
tough.
absolutely.
Sarah, the wife of Abraham, was promised by God that she would be blessed with a child in her old age, and that she would be a mother of nations. Initially barren, she had a son, Isaac, at the age of 90 years old. Sarah displayed faith and obedience to God and her husband Abraham, calling him Lord. We can read about Sarah in the book of Genesis, chapter 16, and 1 Peter, chapter 3.
Absolutely. We have a whole segment just on things like you said, because some kids are homeschooled, which requires them to be on screen time for long periods of time. Or like you said, they live in urban communities. And yes, we are definitely going to go over what are some things that parents can do. We want to bring out this, the negatives, but we also want to give some solutions, right? And not just only focus on the negatives,
Yeah,
right? But I wanted to
absolutely.
mention your son's self-awareness is just phenomenal for that age. And all praise to the Most High for that, right? Like this young prophet
Yes,
is able to
yes.
identify and discern his own spirit. And that is such a beautiful gift to have at that age, because many children at that age are not able to do that, are not able to sit down and be like, you know what? I'm noticing I'm different when I do this. I'm noticing that I'm out of character when I'm on too much screen time playing games. And for him to be able to
Yeah.
identify that is definitely only the Most High who did that thing. Okay? And
Yes,
all
ma'am.
praises for that. And another
Yes, ma'am.
point you made, and I totally 100% agree with you, is years of studying in this profession, in the psychologies, human development, family and marriage therapy, forensic psychology, all these different studies that we've done over the years. There was always a piece missing for me too. Like it was like, okay, I see all this,
Mhm.
but like the way Esau's saying it is not connecting, especially not when it comes to our
Right.
people in our communities, right? What they're saying,
Yes.
supposed to do it like this. No, I cannot do it like that, and I won't. And now to have the
Hmm.
Bible to bring it together, now I'm like, okay, it all makes sense now. Because without it, it
Yes.
just doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit us.
Yeah.
Right? Um, so I want to give a little statistic when it comes to sleep, because that is another issue that can affect like the anxiety, depression, the behavioral issues that our kids may have if they're exposed to too much
Hmm.
sleep time, is the negative effects it has on them on their sleeping patterns. And
Yes.
it says that over 70% of teens who have excessive screen time have reported sleep issues that have been tied to using the device at nighttime, especially like before bed. They may play games. Um, and that is not good because their development, their brain development, and it can definitely uh, impact their chances of developing anxiety, depression, and behavioral issues. I mean, who wouldn't be irritable when they have slept horrible the night before, right? Even me,
Absolutely.
right?
And kids need even more sleep than we do, for the most part,
Right,
because they're
right.
developing. Yeah. And so they're definitely doing themselves a disservice, or us parents are, if we're not making sure, hey, give me that before you hit the bed, let's cut that off
Yes,
at a set time,
yes,
So yeah, I'm with you. And that's the thing with sleep. They're finding in so many studies now that sleep affects weight, sleep affects our cognitive ability, our ability to think, emotional regulation. So
yes,
if we have not had a good night's sleep, especially a teenager or a child, we as parents know, oh God, it's not going to be a good day. So imagine now they have to sit down and do schoolwork. and retain information or retain their precepts and study their scriptures. They can't do it. They can't do it. And that leaves them open for a lot of sin. It leaves them open to a lot of external influences that they're even seeing before they shut their eyes. Can you imagine that that's the last thing they see is, Fortnite or YouTube or whatever it is, whatever that imagery is, it can't be good. I mean, outside of, original royalty or watch and read or a class, or even reading their scriptures, outside of that, there's really nothing else that they should be shutting their eyes. And that's the last thing that's there,
Right. That is so spot on. I mean, I know for me personally, this may not be for everybody. For me, the last thing I watch cannot be like world news. I can't watch a horror flick, sci-fi, any of that because I'm opening myself up to have some really weird dreams, okay?
Yes.
So imagine a child, right? Whose imagination is a little beyond mine,
Yes, I'm with you. Yeah, I mean, they can just take it and run with it. And I mean, so that's where it goes into the depression, because now with lack of sleep, I mean, we all know that they use sleep deprivation as a form of torture in work, right? So if kids are not sleeping, now they're emotionally out of order. They're cognitively out of order. They can't learn as well. Socially, they don't want to talk to anybody. They're grumpy. They just hate the world because they're deficient. They're not at their best. So it is super important that all of us are careful with what do we see before we close our eyes. And also, I think it's good for parents to have a time frame. I mean, a lot of parents, it can be hard, but it really should be at least an hour before bedtime. All devices should be off, and maybe have time of prayer, or maybe, just talking about the next day or whatever it is, to let those children have that kind of sleep routine, that prep routine before they lay it down within that hour. I think they would see a difference in their kids' behavior.
Yeah, that's some good stuff right there. That is some good stuff. Hello family, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for part 2 as Sister Aviella and I further discuss screen time and how it can turn into a full-on addiction for children. We'll talk about what's really going on and share some realistic ways to help. So be sure to watch out for part 2. Being a good